Alright, let's get sat down here, situated. Got a good one today, a little Defender Deck Tech. Some good jokes in this one. Of course you're here. Hello, Jerry. And hello, Dev. I don't know why such an accusatory tone. All I want to do is talk about today's video a little bit. Yeah, sure, Jer Bear, that'd be cool, but it seems like all you ever want to talk about is what we can't talk about. Now, it is funny you should mention that, because I do have a few things I'd like to bring up in terms of today's content. First of all, we don't have the rights to a bunch of stuff that you want to do, I think. Now, I know how much you like to sing, but you can't do, "Hey now, you're a wall star." You get the Shrek people on us, and we probably don't want that. Second of all, you can't do "to the window, to the wall," because the rest of that's just gross, and again, we don't have the rights to it. And you can't do "wall me," because that's, trust me, you don't want smoke from the Blondie camp. You also can't do "wall the right moves in wall the right places." We've just determined that that one's not funny. And you can't make any Pink Floyd or Oasis jokes. Yeah, Jerry, it'd be easier if you just told me that we don't have the rights to anything, because we're a YouTube channel. Oh no, funny enough, we have the rights to those. They're just too obvious. Let's see what else here. You can't say "just call me Walt Disney." That one's obviously right out. And you can't refer to Wingmantle Chaplin as Charlie Chaplin. It seems like that would be in the public domain now, but we still don't have the rights to that one. There's a bunch of jokes here, too, that are highly inappropriate and will not do well with the YouTube algorithm. So you can't say anything about wall bangers, for instance. But hold on now. Objection. Phoenix Wright. Wall banger is not like a weird, offensive thing. It's a normal word. It's like a drink. Don't lie to me. I've seen your script and I've marked 27 different instances of you using the word wallbanger extremely inappropriately. So try not to do that one here, bud. You also can't say that walking bulwark is walking bull. You also can't say that blight pile is a blight pile of turds. You can't say kick 'em in the walls. That one doesn't even work. It's gross, but it also doesn't really work because we're the ones with the walls, so why would you kick them in the walls? It doesn't make sense to me. You also can't use Faithbound Judge as a jumping off point to talk about your attraction to Judge Lynn Toller. It's just weird. Don't do it. But she's pretty and she's nice. Look, we all know that, but somebody out here is going to bonk you if you keep it up. And finally, for God's sake, don't say anything about sugar pie walls. But look, that's wall I got for this one. See, this is easy. What you do is easy. I don't know why you're so stuck up about it all the time. You can do comedy without having to do whatever this nonsense is. But anyway, look, I hope you still have some jokes after that, buddy. Have a good video, and I will see you next time. Take it easy, bud. Whoa, that she wants is another baby. She's gone tomorrow. Well, but you get to sing. Of course, Jerry. Basically took everything from me at this point, bud. What do I do? I guess something about the Walmart? It's probably copyrighted too. Maybe I could say I got these cards at the Wall Mall. That's almost clever. Maybe something about wallabies? I'm not too sure. At this point, I'm almost out of jokes. Hey, I'm back. Not bad. Oh, you're here. Hey, walls up. Waltz up, Walzards. It's Dev from Mtg. Wall Leica to Magic. It's terrible. But still, not as terrible as I thought this deck was going to be while I was building it, but I am married to it because the patrons picked this for our first deck of the season. So in the immortal words of Forte from Beauty and the Beast's Enchanted Christmas, I am bolted to the wall. And when I first started building this thing, my fears were fully realized because I was trying to build Esper walls, mostly because I wanted to play with Coral Colony. One of the best games of Magic I've ever played in my entire 30-year almost Magic life was a game against my local game store's shop owner at an F&M that went way over time. We played for about an hour and 20 minutes, and I was playing with Blue-White Doorkeeper about 10 years ago, one of the most budget decks I've ever brought to an F&M, and that game lives rent-free in my head to this day. So I was really excited when I saw Coral Colony first get spoiled, but about halfway through brewing this deck, I guess you could say I hit a wall. So in the end, very long, very head pounding against my desk multiple times at a high rate of speed, story cut short, I decided to just cut blue from the deck entirely because Coral Colony never won a single game, and hey, Orzhov's going to be more budget anyway. So today, after all of that intro, let's talk a little bit about Orzhov Defenders. And I'm your favorite Magic Channel's favorite Magic Channel. Best believe that the professor go bananas for my deck techs. I come correct like a porn star, slicing up all these other suckers with my sword mark. And we're back. Hey, make sure to like and subscribe for Wall, the Magic the Gathering content. Man, Joey's right. Wall jokes are way too easy. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about this deck. And we got to go ahead and jump into it because we've been here for 30 minutes already. And I don't want this to be a 2-hour deck tech. So let's talk walls, everybody. I mean, not every single creature in the deck is a wall. It's just fun. It's fun to make wall jokes. But we have the A team and the B team, the small walls and the tall walls in this deck. And I actually think I want to start with the small walls. Let's talk about the B team and bring up some pretty good walls. I don't want to give you the wrong impression. These cards are very important to our deck. Let's talk first about the 4 copies of Concealing Curtains that we're playing, along with 4 copies of Walking Bulwark and 4 copies of Gibbering Barricade. I gotta tell you, I've played a little over 20 games, close to 25, with this deck all total by this point, and Gibbering Barricade has activated roughly twice. You think you're going to activate this thing all the time when they go to remove an important wall, but often you'd just rather use the mana for something else because other walls in the deck have important activated abilities and we don't have all the mana in the world. But sometimes this will draw you a card, and drawing cards is something that we're super into. The stat line on this matters a good bit. A 3-mana 2/4 isn't the worst thing in the world. This is one of the few walls in the deck that can actually block and kill stuff. Concealing Curtains is a great little 1-drop wall that does lots of stuff, right? Like, it's a wall, first of all. The deck needs lots of walls. We got to play at least 26, and that's the number that we've hit. We also, though, need to play spells, some disruption here and there, and this allows us to basically play a wall and a spell in the same slot, so it's awesome. This allows us to get the Sweeper out of our opponent's hand. Really important function on this card because we need a ton of walls all on the battlefield at the same time if this deck is going to do what it ultimately wants to do. So being able to get the card out of your opponent's hand that prevents that from happening, great. And also, this card is one of the few cards in the deck that can attack for damage. We really like that. Sometimes a Concealing Curtains will get in for like 6 points of damage in one game, and that's awesome. It's just one of the best cards in the deck, and it's so good that the carpet even matches the drapes. You didn't take that one from me, Jerry. You didn't think about that one, did you? But Walking Bulwark, y'all, this thing is a key card if there ever was one. Give it a captain tag. It's that important. This thing is another way of winning games, basically. We can't just rely on like activating Blight Pile a few times. And we'll get to that card in a second. It's obviously very important. But we have to have more ways of winning games than just that. And Bulwark gives us another great way of doing it, you know. Concealing Curtains and another creature or two here and there are getting in natural damage. But Bulwark allows every creature in our deck to get in for sometimes a pretty healthy amount of damage. And there's some really good things about this besides just that, right? The big thing is allowing us to attack, but this is also just a nice little 1-drop wall we can cast no matter what color of mana we have on turn 1, which is more important than you might believe. And it's kind of got haste. It's kind of like a 3-mana 3/3 haste some of the time. And this will really help you recover from sweepers, whether you're hasting it or you recover from the sweeper by, say, getting it out of your graveyard along with another wall, which we have ways of doing in this deck. And then you can just, depending on what your mana situation looks like, give both of them haste and swing immediately. This card just does like way more than it looks like it does. It's a super important card for the deck, and I like that there's kind of a wall joke in its name. But now let's look at the A team. The stuff that really impressed me building this deck here, we got 4 copies of Wingmantle Chaplain, 4 copies of Blight Pile, and 4 copies of Faithbound Judge here. Now, in case you didn't know this, Wingmantle Chaplain is becoming the sort of mythic uncommon of the Dominaria United draft environment, and it translates pretty well to standard Magic too, so long as you can put a bunch of walls into play. Sometimes Chaplain will just put like 6 birds into play pretty easily, and this is yet another card that can basically attack for damage. Now, Chaplain's not going to be doing much attacking itself. That's true. But what this can do is put, 4 power and toughness into play really easily. And if you remember all the Alrund's Epiphany shenanigans from last season before that card got banned, 4 birds are actually pretty intimidating. And Chaplain has definitely forced scoops in playtesting. People seem to really not like losing to this one. You plop it down, you get 4 birds, your opponent flips you 1 right back, and they scoop the game. But there's other good cards on the screen right now. We got Blight Pile, which is probably the one that most people want to build the deck around. Of the cards on screen, this won me the fewest games, but it still wins you the odd game here and there, and it does a lot to win us the game in the example game that we'll look at later. But there are so many times where this is just a huge pile of inevitability. I know I'm not supposed to call it a pile of anything, but it is a pile of inevitability late in the game where your opponent can't really attack through your defenses, and at the end of their turn, you just hit them for 5. You just lava axe them every single turn. Most people can't take more than a few turns of that before they're just done. And perhaps most importantly, Faithbound Judge. I will say that this thing won me more games in testing than any other card. It's like the deck that this card has been waiting for the whole time it's been in Standard. You see, this is an extra win condition 2 ways. After it's been a couple of turns, this can fly over for damage, and it actually does that, like, a lot, surprisingly. And sometimes, combined with the damage that Blight Pile is doing, you're just dealing like 8 damage every turn cycle, and there's just really not a whole lot that opponents can do about that if they don't have a flyer or a way to kill your Blight Pile. That said, if they do kill your Faithbound Judge at some point, eventually it's going to come back and kill them, which is pretty sweet. You know, this deck can just kind of shell up, wall up, if you will, and just kind of stave off taking damage, but sometimes it has a hard time actually finishing a game, killing the opponent. So we can sit there twiddling our thumbs behind a bunch of walls for a few turns while our opponent has ground forces that they can't like get through our dudes. But we have to finish. And so Faithbound Judge is really, really good after it's turned over at doing that. And it costs a lot of mana to make it actually happen, but still, we can get this onto the table as a curse and eventually win the game so long as we can prolong it. And we're pretty good at doing that. Now, you know, one of my favorite groups from the 90s is SWV. And I get so weak when I don't have cards in my hand. So I think we should play SWS. I was going somewhere with this. Shield Wall Sentinel. Jerry didn't take that one from me either. I guess it's fine. But we'll see when we go to upload the video. But whatever YouTube says goes. But this, just a 2 of. This isn't quite as important as it is in draft. If you read the articles about Wingmantle Chaplain, you'll hear that this is actually the powerful card. Not Wingmantle Chaplain, but this. It goes and gets your Wingmantle Chaplain, which makes it way more powerful. That's true in this deck, too, where it goes and gets your Chaplain. It gets your Bulwark if you need one, and sometimes you do because you have a bunch of defenders. And it turns out Bulwark, with like 6 mana on the table, can just win games. So sometimes you'll go get that. Sometimes you'll go get your Faithbound Judge. There are a lot of things that can win the game that this just goes and gets. And after you curve out for the first 3 or 4 turns of the game, you're probably out of decent cards in your hand. So all that you ever want, all that you want is some more defenders. So you always want to get them. And sometimes you just draw lands. That sucks. So on those turns, it's nice to have a tutor that, by the way, is also a wall. Again, walls that are good spells. That's what this deck does. You'll be happy or angered to learn that there is another creature in the deck that is not a wall and doubles the cost of the deck. But look, there's ways you can build this deck budget, but at the end of the day, again, lots of banging my head on various surfaces, not just the desks. So I decided the best thing to do was play Sarah Paragon in this slot as my last creature. Now, again, we have got to keep a decent board of walls in place. We got to do it, or we can't really do a lot of the stuff we want to do in this deck. Walking Bulwark doesn't work without a bunch of walls on the table and a bunch of mana. Blight Pile doesn't work without a bunch of walls on the table. So a lot of our strategies really count on having like at least 3 to 5 walls. You need to keep those on the table, and Sarah Paragon is an expensive but great way of doing that. If you lose walls throughout the game, then once a turn, Paragon will help you get those back, and that's incredible. It's just very good, and I think we should play it. But look, if you don't want to play Sarah Paragon, you can just play main deck Patch Up. I'm playing Patch Up in the sideboard. I can get 2 walls back at the same time for 3 mana. Sarah Paragon just gets 1 wall back at a time for 4 mana. And you still have to pay the mana for the wall. That's terrible. Why don't you just play Patch Up in the slot? I'm playing the board mostly against decks that play lots of sweepers. But again, if you want to cut $60 off the cost of this deck, Patch Up is a pretty good place to replace this card. But we're playing some spells in this deck. There are spells. So let's look at these. Even though there aren't a whole lot of them, we don't have much room after playing all them walls. You see all them walls we had to play? So we have to choose our slots wisely, which means we have some silver bullets here, and also 4 copies of Fateful Absence, all of those. But we are playing 1 copy of Valorous Stance, a copy of Hero's Downfall, and a copy of March of Otherworldly Light. Now, Fatal Absence, why wasn't it called that? Fateful Absence can take out Liliana of the Veil. So we play that card. It's like the cheapest thing at instant speed that can take out that. So we just play that. It's good for that. But it also takes out tons of aggro creatures and stuff like that. Just a really cool, versatile, cheap. Am I explaining the presence of Fateful Absence in a deck? We're playing white. Play Fateful Absence in standard. Valorous Stance can protect an important wall. So it does that. But it also kills big things that our walls can't block without dying. So that's cool. Hero's Downfall kills anything. Again, this just kills Liliana. So it's one of the big reasons it's in the deck is it's the 5th thing that kills a Liliana because we're not really going to be doing much attacking into her. Right? We don't really have that avenue. So unless we can Walking Bulwark something, but it costs all the mana, I'd rather just kill it at instant speed. And Downfall does that while also taking out a bunch of creatures. Again, including creatures that are much bigger than our walls. But that's important to have those sort of safety valves. And then March, this kills big dudes. That's cool. Kills Planeswalkers. Good function of the card. And it also just kills stuff. We don't have a whole lot in this deck that can deal with enchantments or artifacts or other problem permanent types. So a 1 of March in the main deck is going to help, especially if you plan to play this deck in best of 1. Let's take a look at this mana base, which is, of course, mana based because it's not that expensive, although Shattered Sanctum is kind of a lot. And altogether, this is like $29 for a playset of Sanctums. But just like Sarah Paragon, this is a pretty easy replace here, right? You could always just cut these and put in like that new Orzhov dual land that has both the swamp and plains land types. That's only like 10 cents. So if you cut the Paragons and those, you're saving close to $100 on this deck, at which point it's well under $50 to build this thing. So you could go budget. But I decided I wanted to present the best version of this deck, and that includes Sarah Paragon, so I apologize. But if you happen to have the Sanctums, throw them in, but you don't necessarily need them. Caves of Koilos, I think you should play this no matter what, basically, because it's only 55 cents. I expected this to be around like $4 or $5, but they've reprinted it into the ground at this point, so this version is only about half of an American dollar to get your hands on, and that's a really good deal for some Caves of Koilos. So aside from that, you got to play your Takenuma and your Ganjo, and it's like $10 for the 2 of those, but I say you got to play them. You don't have to. This whole thing could just be swamps and plains, and that'd probably be fine. But this is the most powerful mana base that you could play at this point, minus Field of Ruin. But let's get into the board here. Now, I'm going to cut this into different sections because we care about aggro, we care about control, and we care about just playing some cards that we want to play. But against aggro, we've got a couple of copies of Cut Down to start things off, especially if we're going to be on the draw in Game 2. Cut Down is a great way of utilizing all of our mana in the early game to make sure that we can not die. It's just so important. I don't know, it's just a tip for playing Magic the Gathering. If you're new, just don't die. And Cut Down really helps with that against the many aggro decks in the format. We have got to beat aggro. And even though most of our walls block something, like whatever Cut Down can kill, it's still nice to have Cut Down. Aside from that, Choking Miasma is in there. We can't pay green for this. We just can't pay green for this. Can't do it, but I still like the idea of playing this over, say, Path to Peril, because this kills whatever gets indestructible. You know, your opponents can't use certain things like Tamio's Safekeeping to save their guys. Guardian of New Benalia still dies to this, and I think those are semi-important lines, right? So I like this to just kill all these small ball aggro and tokens decks. Again, there are a ton of those. I want a 3-drop sweeper, and I think this is one of the better ones we could play. Aside from that, I'm also playing Depopulate. I want a straight-up sweeper, too, for when we're in need of a panic button, so I'm playing that against the various aggro decks as well. But there are control lists that we have to worry about from time to time, so I'm playing 3 copies of Duress, just kind of a time-honored card, getting more stuff out of their hand. Yes, we're playing Concealing Curtains, but we could always get more things out of their hands, so we'll just do that. And then I'm playing 2 copies of Patch Up. This again can get back like a 2-drop wall and a 1-drop wall, and we've got plenty of those. It can also just get back a Faithbound Judge before we play it out of our yard. So all of that's good. Patch Up is actually a surprisingly very decent card that again could very well go in the main deck, and I wouldn't be mad at you. But aside from that, I've got another copy of Valorous Stance, mostly against control decks when we need to protect our guys. But if opponents on a bunch of big beefy cakes, I guess we'll play this too. March of Otherworldly Light to take out problem permanent types again, and Destroy Evil. This can take out not only enchantments, but again, yet another thing that kills those big boys that are just a little too big to block with our walls and survive. And here are your power rankings. It feels like it's been a while since we showed you power ranks. It feels like it's been a while since we did a deck tech. We're back, everybody. I hope you're happy. Anyway, a final score of 63 here with high scores in both synergy and defense. The deck does have a fair amount of removal, and even some of its walls are technically removal, like Concealing Curtains is kind of, in a way, a disruption spell, if nothing else. So, again, we actually get a lot of action out of our walls in this deck. Our walls are our win condition, our walls block for us, our walls disrupt the opponent, but again, we still have a lot of spells in this deck that can get the job done for us in the defense category. And the deck is honestly more versatile than I thought it would be. Just like I imagine a lot of people watching this, I thought it's just going to be a Blight Pile at first, but this deck can win with Blight Pile and Walking Bulwark and damage from Faithbound Judge and Concealing Curtains attacking. It can win off of just Faithbound Judge coming out of your graveyard and cursing the opponent. There are multiple ways of actually finishing a game with this thing. So when I first started building it, I was like, well, we're just going to lose every single game, but you surprisingly don't. But on that note, let's look at a game so you know that I'm not just telling wall tales. This one right here is against Rakdos Anvil, which is a pretty prevalent matchup in the format right now, and surprisingly, I think you might say, one of our best matchups. Now in a long game, a Rakdos player could game us out with a bunch of life gain and life lost with a Meat Hook Massacre, Only Cold Anvils, activations, whatever, but it turns out that in long games, we're actually better because Blight Pile does more damage than Only Cold Anvil over long games. Plus, we can swing in with Fatebound Judge and deal damage and stuff. Just matchups like this where the opponent doesn't have access to all of the removal in the world and we're both just trying to build board states, we actually tend to have a little bit more inevitability in. So enjoy the game. Good game, opponent. Now that's all I got for this one. Jerry already did that joke. I'm not going to let him take it from me. Jerry can't just have the good joke. It's not even a good joke. That's all I got for this one. And just let me know how you felt about it. I guess. I hope you get a chance to play this deck. And you should, right? I mean, maybe you don't have Sarah Paragons. But again, I think it's fairly easy to replace those in the main deck. So give this one a shot and let me know what you think. Like I said, I was pretty convinced that this one wasn't going to be super great, but it surprised me in the end. So I hope you get to play a few games with it. But as usual, I should have trusted my patrons. They always know exactly what to do. But if you want to be one of those, you can. I'm not going to like gatekeep it or anything. No, you can't be a patron. Why would I do that? You can be a patron for as little as $1 a month, and that'll allow you to vote on content. Again, that's why we're doing this for the first deck of the season, is that the patrons actually overwhelmingly voted for this. So if you want to affect the course of YouTube history, go to patreon.com/SBMTG or just hit the link in the description. It's up to you. Aside from that, that's about all I got for this one. So do YouTube things like subscribe. First deck tech back. I feel strong. I feel good. And I'm going to do a lot more of these this season. So let me know what you want to see this season down there in the comment section. That's what it's called. I was going to call it the sideboard because that's what I usually call it. Can you tell I'm out of practice with deck techs? We'll get back to it. But anyway, I love you guys, and I will catch you cats later. I am Dev from the place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. It's terrible. Anyway, spread love and be kind.